Hey everybody, Roland Frasier here, and I'm going to talk about how you can grow your business faster using 5 strategies that are kind of different and fun that you might not really be thinking about as you're exploring your options for growing your company. The first one is co-branding with product integration partnerships. Okay, so that's a bunch of kind of marketing speak. Let's break it down. Co-branding is basically, if you guys have heard of collabs, a lot of collabs are happening now between different celebrities and brands. So you might have Travis Scott with Jack doing a collab with Nike to create a sneaker, or you might have Pokemon doing a collab with with a clothing brand to create some sort of co-branded thing. All co-branding is you're basically taking two brands that come together in a partnership to create a single or a small line of products, right? So, or services. It can be either one. So why would you do co-branding? Co-branding is good because anytime that you've got two audiences that are similar either in their demographic makeup, meaning that they're the same kind of like age and interests, or psychographic, they have the same things that they're interested in, that is something that creates an opportunity for each of the brands to come in and contribute their audience appeal to create awareness for the other brand. So if you're Nike, you're like, I got a whole bunch of people that like shoes, and you're Travis Scott, and you're like, I got a whole bunch of people that like my music and the other stuff that I do. Then you're like, well, let's bring those two things together, and now we'll have effectively a Cactus Jack shoe. And they do that, and then they typically do that using what they call a drop. So they're releasing that and announcing it to both of their audiences. And that's where the magic comes in, because now Nike is getting exposure to a whole different audience, and so is Travis Scott and Cactus Jack. They're getting exposure to a whole different audience of Nike sneaker buyers that might not have ever heard of them. And because these are typically done as limited runs, it's even more interesting because there's a huge demand and there's a lot of hype around it, and that creates product awareness. And then there's a good chance that the people that are the Nike people that don't know about Scott and his Cactus Jack now might go check that out and buy that independent without it being a collab. And it's the same thing. The people that weren't previously maybe buying Nike collabs or Nike shoes themselves think, oh, this is actually cool. Nike's got some pretty cool stuff, and they're doing collabs with cool people that like things like we like. So let's see who else they're doing that with. So that's really the benefit of the whole co-branding thing, is the ability to get exposure to other people's audiences, and also to adjust your brand to show that it's keeping up with the time. So older, bigger brands partnering with other brands can be very very popular. Rihanna doing this with Louis Vuitton, right? That was a good collab that's made her a billionaire. So there's a lot of things to do that. Now, that's a collab. The next level of collab, because collabs are typically, or co-branding, are typically not long-term kinds of deals. And when we're thinking about a longer-term type of deal, we're talking about a strategic partnership, a partnership between two brands to integrate their brands together in a way that accomplishes the same things as co-branding, but they become much more tightly wound together. So instead of kind of a one-time deal, it's a longer-term proposition. What would a product integration be? One of my favorite examples was Pizza Hut and Domino's. I think it was Domino's actually that partnered with some of the lower end hotels that didn't offer room service, and so they basically integrated the delivery of the pizza into the hotel experience, so that anybody that was checking into the hotel came into the room, and then there's a little placard on the desk that said, no room service, hungry, and then said, we deliver, and had Domino's or Pizza Hut or whoever it was on the card. So then that's integrating the pizza restaurant into the actual buying experience of the hotel. So those product integrations can be very, very profitable. Casper Mattress has done a great job of that. When I flew on, I think it was British Airways, to London, in the first class section, the mattresses, they give you mattresses that they roll out over the lie flat seats. And so the pillows and the bedding and the mattresses were all branded Casper. So they had integrated the Casper brand into this experience with the first class of the airlines. And Casper did that also with West Elm. So that can be very, very good way, a very, very good way on the long-term basis to think about who are the brands that have the audience that is my ideal audience, and how can I reach out to them and think about a way that my product will integrate within their brand in a way that is beneficial to everybody. And the last example I'll use is here in the neighborhood where I'm recording this right now, we have a country club. And from time to time, and this is a more one-off co-branding, but it's worth mentioning because I think it's smart as you're trying to generate co-branding ideas. And so it's a golf club that is a country club. So we have several members, several hundred members. And what happens is that high-end car dealers will bring in their cars to do test drives. And they do this all over the country with a whole bunch of country clubs. And think about, like, where can Aston Martin, who's one of the ones, and Rolls-Royce is another one, and Ferrari was another one, that where can they go and actually get a high number of their ideal customer that's going to that typically buys their type of car, to expose them to the brand that they might not otherwise be exposed to in an environment that makes it easy, the country club, where they just say, hey, we're doing test drives for the next 2 or 3 days. We're going to be doing test drives. Make an appointment and take a test drive. I never intended to buy an Aston Martin, but I took a test drive and it was so great that I bought one. I never intended to buy a Rolls Royce, but same thing, right? I didn't buy a Ferrari because I actually did the test drive and I didn't think it was that great. But what was cool about it was I didn't have to go out to a car dealership. I never planned to do that. I wasn't looking to do that, but ultimately they sell a whole bunch of cars to people like that. And then I've bought several more of those brands ever since then because I became a loyal person to that brand. So when you're thinking about ideas for growth, one of the ones that's definitely worth thinking about is co-branding and product integration partnerships. The next thing, the second thing I want to talk about growth strategy-wise that not a lot of people think about is how do you use what I call butterfly leverage? So if you've ever heard of the butterfly effect, it's a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil and a tsunami happens in Thailand. And it's all because of the ripple effect of the fluttering of the wings. This one thing that's very, very small can result in some other thing that's very, very big. Now, did it actually result? Is there actual correlation or contribution even? Who knows? But in butterfly leverage, there actually is. And so here's what we're doing is every time that you take an action in your business, I want you to ask, how else can I monetize this? How else can I monetize this? And ideally, I'd like for you to try to take it 5 levels deep. So, example, we have an event that we own part of still. We sold controlling interest to a Blackstone company called Clarion several years ago. And every year we have celebrities come to that event. So here's an example of how to ask that question of what else can I do to monetize this? So the very first thing was that the event is going to have Richard Branson come. So Richard Branson, we hired to be a speaker, the keynote celebrity. I interviewed him at the event. And then we said, okay, well, what else can we do to monetize this? Well, that alone helped on the first level of elevating our brand, because being associated with Sir Richard Branson was a cool thing, and he is an aspirational figure to our audience. Well, then we say, okay, well, that's great. That's an out-of-pocket cost that we did not have to pay because the event paid for it. And now, because I'm going to interview him, I'm going to be associated with that. Okay. The first thing, though, the very first benefit is sell more tickets. So what we did was we said, okay, we've got Richard Branson, we've announced him. How can we use that to sell more tickets? Obviously, the main reason we got him was to elevate the brand and hopefully to sell more tickets. But then it's like, okay, well, just beyond having him and advertising it, how do I get more? So we went out to all of our speakers who had promoted the event as affiliates, letting their audiences know, because we have over 100 speakers that speak at the event. We said, okay, listen, we know that you've already announced everything to your people, but now you're going to be sharing the stage with Richard Branson. And we created these speaker cards that we sent that had a big picture of Richard Branson and a big picture of them. And it said, announcing, my presentation, blah, 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 appearing with Richard Branson. Everybody sent that out. None of them would have sent again, right? They'd already sent their marketing materials for the event saying, hey, I'm going to speak at Traffic and Conversion Summit. That's the name of the event. But Mad Branson, and we took the actual time to create speaker cards that had their face and his face, and then the other bigger celebrities down at the bottom. That was a big thing for them. They wanted to let everybody they knew know that they were going to speak on the stage that Richard Branson, at the same event that Richard Branson was speaking at, as well as all these other celebrities. So we got, I want to say it was an extra $1.5 million, $2 million in sales. It was a lot of tickets that were sold that we would have never sold had we not done that monetization step of how do we get more out of this thing that we've done, okay? Initial thing, this is the butterfly of the leverage, right? The initial flicker was, let's get Branson to appear for a paid speech or paid interview at the event. The tickets are going to be sold because of that brand elevation. Then butterfly effect leverage number one was selling an extra $1.5 million, $2 million by actually consciously saying, how can we take advantage of this? Okay, thing number two. So now we have him coming and we pay a fee for him to come, and we've sold some extra tickets. We said, well, what else can we do? How can we monetize this even further? So we said, okay, let's do a meet and greet, a celebrity meet and greet event, and let's sell tickets to that. And we sold tickets to that for $15,000 per person. So this was a very small group of people who had the opportunity to come and meet him at after hours at a room where we would go and he would be able to talk with them. It was really great experience. But by doing that, we were able to sell about $450,000 we had like 30 people at $15,000 that we created, that we sold to come into this VIP experience. So now we've monetized an extra, let's go on the low side. We've monetized an extra $1.5 million from sending out the speaker cards. And now we've got another $450,000. Let's just round that up for math and call it 500. Now we've got $2 million total extra that we've been able to earn from this appearance that we wouldn't have had we not thought this way. Okay, what else can we do? Well, I had the opportunity. Richard prefers to be interviewed than to present. So I had the opportunity to interview him on stage. So what could I do that would advance our interests to allow us to monetize this even further? Okay, well, I just talked to you about recently co-branding and product integrations. So we did an integration into Traffic and Conversion Summit of our Business Lunch podcast, which is a podcast that I do. And on that podcast, I was able to interview Branson live on stage at Traffic and Conversion Summit. So it then becomes effectively a triple integration deal, because I've got Branson, who has a huge brand, including Virgin. I've got Traffic and Conversion Summit, which is a huge brand in the digital marketing space. And I got my little old podcast, which is a good brand, but certainly not nearly as well known as those. And I'm in front of live about 5,000 people and more who are listening in virtually. So what I do then is on stage, and if you look at the pictures that were taken at the event, if you ever see them, there's a big screen behind Branson and me that says Business Lunch Live. And so it's getting everyone to know, oh, there's this podcast that Richard Branson's being interviewed for, and it's called Business Lunch. I've got to check that out. So we got thousands of subscribers from the people that minute of that day in the audience to that podcast as a result of that exposure through that product integration at the Traffic and Conversion Summit. So one of your things you want to ask when you're thinking about how do I apply butterfly leverage is, can I get something else from this thing that I'm doing? So we got thousands of subscribers, and that is a podcast that monetizes through advertising. So I got thousands of subscribers. I got the association with Branson for the podcast. I got the association of the podcast with the event. And I've got more people who are increasing my downloads, which is how you sell advertising on podcasts. Fantastic, right? What else can we do? So now we're adding, I don't want to, let's just be super conservative and say that was worth, let's just say it was worth 50,000. That's a very low number, but that rounds us up to 2 million from our $1.5 million in ticket sales from Butterfly Leverage 1 to 450,000 in VIP sales for Butterfly Leverage number 2 to 50,000 in podcast revenue from Butterfly Leverage number 3. Then what else can we do? Well, a buddy of mine who does podcast instructions works with Apple and was able to negotiate a announcement where we got a deal with the, I think it was the homepage of Apple for like some period of time because we gave them a 60-day exclusive. So then we got basically a deal with Apple on a podcast for this rinky-dink podcast that we do that nobody really knows about other than a few thousand people. And that also helped tremendously in getting additional subscribers, and on and on and on. So you just want to say, how many ways can I monetize this thing that I'm looking at right now? And that is what we call butterfly leverage. So the next thing that I want to talk about strategically is, how can you use the assets that you already have to help with growth? How can you use assets that you already have to help with growth? And all I'm thinking about here is, if you take an inventory of your assets, they usually fall into a few different categories. They might fall into the category of the actual provision of the product or service that you've got. So you can ask yourself, what are the other places that I could provide that product or service to? And what am I talking about here? So you might think about, how could I take the existing assets that I've got and sell them to an audience that I'm not currently selling them to? How can I sell them to an audience that I'm not currently selling them to that's an extension of the audience that I've got? Example. So we had a product that was called a credit card knife, which my business partner at the time, Perry Belcher, came up with, and it ended up becoming the, I think, the number one most seized item by TSA during one of the years when we first launched it. But it was basically a little credit card that had a knife on it, and it folded out into a knife. Okay, so it was very, very handy because you can put it in your pocket. It doesn't cut anything. Then you flip it out, and you can use it to cut stuff. So we said, well, initially our market for that was survival people, because we had a company called Survival Life. So we said, okay, that's our existing audience. What is an audience that is expanded outside of that, that is an extension of that? Well, an extension of survivalists would be the camping audience. And survivalists, there's only about 3 million of those people here in the United States, but there's about 40 million camping enthusiasts. And so that was a huge extension of the audience. So we took the assets that we already had and said, how do we make that available to and benefit a bigger audience? That's the first step. Then the next step is, what's a new audience that we're not even using now that might use this? And if we think about that audience, it could be anyone in any sport could potentially benefit from having a little knife that they could carry around. And there's 140 million people who are sporting enthusiasts. So that's a very simple example of how do I take an asset like a product that I've got and expand it into other things. So you want to say also, could it be different geographical territories? Could it be different applications of the product that I've got? All of those are good questions to ask. Okay, the next thing to think about when you're thinking about growth is how do I focus on my most impactful activities, my MIA, my most impactful activities? And let go of my least impactful activities, my LIAs. So how you do that is you just have to break down what are the things that you are doing right now in terms of profit centers that are producing the most profits for you. Because in any business, you're typically going to have more than one offer that's going on. If you have only one offer, then you can go specific to what are the different things that you're doing with respect to that offer. So let's assume that you've only got, let's do it first. The easiest is you've got more than one offer. So let's say that you've got offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, offer 4. And offer 1 and offer 3 are generating 80% of your profits. Well, it probably makes sense for you to double down on 1 and 3 and let 2 and 4 have less of your attention, because 1 and 3 are contributing 80% of your profits. If you can get rid of 2 and 4 and let's say they're only contributing 10% each, and the other 1 and 3 are contributing a total of 80%, well, now you're focusing more of your activities on the 2 activities that are producing the most profit for you, and you're taking the time that you were spending on the 2 that are the least profitable away. And that's going to make you significantly more productive, okay? If you have only one offer, one product, one profit center, you're like, well, how can I do this? It's easy. Say, okay, in that profit center, let's start with what is the thing within that profit center for that one thing, that one product, let's say you're a one product or one service company, that generates the most sales. Okay, so then you're going to break down your sales by channel, and you're going to say, okay, well, there's word of mouth, that's 10%. There's paid advertising on Facebook, that's 30%. There's search engine optimization, that's 60%. That adds up to 100 if my math is right. Okay, well, so now we know that the word of mouth activities are only generating 10%. So there's not a lot that we're probably going to do that's going to affect word of mouth. So we're really just looking at the difference between Facebook, which is generating 30% of sales, and SEO, which is generating 60% of sales, right? And the 60% of sales through SEO means that SEO is twice as effective as Facebook at generating sales. So what we might think about is that we want to focus more activity on the things that maybe it's creating content that is published that creates the SEO, but we might think about spending more time and effort there because it's a more impactful activity because it's twice as productive for us. The same amount of effort is producing double the result there. So there's a million ways to analyze that, but the concept is simply get rid of the stuff that's not working. Stop doing the activities that are the least productive. Stop doing the things that are having the lowest amount of impact on your business, and then focus consciously on doing the things that have the biggest impact or the most impact. And the last thing that I want to talk about with growth strategies today is acquisitions. And acquisitions, I teach a course called the Epic Challenge. You can go to getepicchallenge.com and find out when the next one is. But basically, acquisitions are the fastest way to grow a business. I've never seen anything that you could do where you could literally snap your fingers and double the size of your business overnight other than acquisitions. If you acquire a company that has the same number of customers and sales that your company has today, tomorrow you will have literally doubled your business. There's nothing else I'm aware of that can have that kind of impact. So what I want you to think about is not the how. Don't get caught in what Tony Robbins calls the tyranny of the how, because I can show you how in the challenge, or I've got a book, etc. There's lots of ways that you can find out how I teach that. But conceptually today, I just want you to think about the fact that if you want to grow your business, however you want to grow your business, acquisitions can help. And I look primarily at 7 different things that you might be interested in to grow your business. One is that you might want to grow the market share of your business. Well, you can acquire businesses that are exactly the same business that you've got. We call that horizontal integration in the investment banking world, by buying your competitors. You can simply go and acquire your competitors. If you want more market share, you can acquire your competitors. And they can be direct, indirect, substitute, replacement. There's all kinds of different competitors. But bottom line is, if somebody else is competing with you right now in any aspect of your business, you can go and acquire them. And that's how you get more market share. The next thing that you could think about is, well, maybe I would like to get more leads, because if I could get more leads, I could get more sales. In that case, then you want to think about acquiring media. Media is someone who has already aggregated the attention and eyeballs of your ideal customer, your ideal prospect. So if you've got a business that sells bottled water, and you can go and find the bottled water lovers group and acquire that, then that will give you leads that might be able to be exposed now to your bottled water product, right? This works for anything. So think about acquiring the companies that have already aggregated the attention and eyeballs of your ideal customer, and that will give you leads that can grow your business. Maybe you need to grow your business because you need more infrastructure, meaning that you need scale. Scale is the ability to handle more business, as opposed to growth, which is the more business that comes, okay? You got to have both. If you can't scale, then you can't handle more customers, so you can't handle growth. So if you want to grow your business in a scaling fashion, then you're going to want to acquire teams or resources. That's the third thing, teams or resources. So this might mean an entire sales team or a key operator. It might be a software development team. You can simply go and acquire a company that already has that sales team, that already has that kick-ass dev team, and then you will have them in your company. The next thing that you want to think about is, I need to increase my average order value. So I want to increase the size of the transactions that my customers are doing. Well, the easy way to increase your average order value is to acquire other people who have products and services that your customers are already buying, either before, during, or after the time that they transact with you. That's really simple. So that's simply acquiring other people's products or services. If you find that you would like to acquire a higher profit margin, then you're going to think about doing what we call vertical integration. So this is that you're acquiring the people who are supplying you or distributing your products. That could be affiliates that are selling your products. It could be retail stores that are selling your products, or distributors if you're a wholesaler. If you're a manufacturer, it could be your wholesalers. It could be up the line. If you're a manufacturer, the companies that are providing you the ingredients or components of what you're putting together. If you're a wholesaler, you could acquire a manufacturer. If you're a digital marketing company or a digital product company, it might be who's producing the content, who's your media buying company, who are you outsourcing anything to. If you acquire those, then you effectively capture a greater part of the value chain, and people who are now making profit for their businesses off of what you do, because you're buying from them or they're selling your stuff and making money doing that, then you're capturing that margin and you're increasing your profit margin. If you want to increase your lifetime customer value, then you want to think about acquiring recurring revenue products and services. If you can get a recurring product or a recurring service that you can tack on to what you've already got through an acquisition, then that will mean that the people that are your customers are going to buy again and again and again. That's the definition of recurring revenue. So that will increase your lifetime customer value. Last but not least, if you would like to acquire innovation, if you'd like to get new innovative products so that you have more cool things that your customers can buy or more cool services, then you want to think about acquiring intellectual property, right? So competitors, media, teams and resources, other products and services, recurring revenue, intellectual property, and suppliers and distributors. Those are the 7 categories of acquisition. Any of those can help you grow your company. And those are the 5 things that you can do that most people aren't thinking about that you can use to grow your company.